Hi there, it's Ron Gula from GULATECH Adventures. Today we're talking about common controls that are being exploited to attack networks like yours. In May of 2022, the U.S. government, in partnership with many of our allies, released a paper outlining various types of controls that they've observed Russia, China, and other threat actors circumventing to attack networks, steal IP, and deploy ransomware. The first control was the lack of pervasive multi-factor authentication. Many organizations who were attacked had a two-factor, multi-factor authentication program, but they didn't deploy it 100% across their servers, applications, and people. If you have one of these programs, you need to ensure 100% coverage. Second thing that they found was that complex internal applications, such as Active Directory, often created users who had roles with privileges beyond their need. Privileges allow you to do things like create other users, delete users, move data around, and depending on the application, there's various types of roles that can be created such that you can give an employee or a contractor the very minimum privilege they need to do their job. Otherwise, you end up with everybody having administration rights, and if anybody gets compromised, attackers can do whatever they want. This limits your attack surface if you can lock this down. Not surprisingly, our industry is still struggling with how to deploy the latest and greatest software updates. Organizations have come a long way in fixing endpoint devices such as phones and laptops, but we still struggle to patch things like cameras and routers and ICS types of devices. Similarly, we have a lot of things on our network, both applications, software, and devices, where the username and password to log into them is set by the vendor. If it's set by the vendor, then the attackers know these usernames and passwords and can easily break in. Resetting these is an easy thing to do, but we have to be aware of it. Both detecting the software that needs to be updated and devices and applications with common usernames and passwords can be found by any type of vulnerability management program. Now, another thing that's been attacked by Russia and China is virtual private networks. A virtual private network, of course, allows remote employees to get into the office, perhaps even into the cloud data center. And these software and devices used to set up the virtual private network can have vulnerabilities. It can have those usernames and passwords that are default. It can even have those insecure permissions. Any of these things can make your VPN, which is supposed to be a way for trusted employees to get access to the network, a front door for adversaries. Another finding in this document was that organizations who used passwords to maintain access control had struggled with using password complexity, password reuse, and not even a consistent policy. I highly recommend organizations move to two-factor where they can, and if they can't, they should have a centralized password management solution where they can ensure all of the passwords are complex. Now, similarly, as we talked about Active Directory and other types of on-prem applications, cloud applications can also have user privileges that are beyond what users need. If you're using Office 365, if you're using Google Workspace, G Suite, if you're using Salesforce, you probably have a set of administration roles, you probably have a set of user roles, and perhaps this needs to be audited because perhaps even compromising a regular user could allow you to read data beyond what's authorized or even create and move users around. Organizations still have a lot of open ports. This is a very interesting thing because it used to be that we all had a private network and we sat behind a firewall and we would reconfigure the firewall to allow our web server. And we used to talk about how perhaps our email server and web server and DNS servers would all be in a like a bastion area between our network and the rest of the internet. But today with the modern cloud architecture, most of our services are in the cloud. They're at Amazon, they're at DigitalOcean, but we're still seeing evidence of attackers that are targeting open ports that are directly exposed to the internet. This could be remote desktops that should have been protected by a virtual private network. Any of these things can be found with a good vulnerability management program. And you should decide if these things are really secured and being exposed to the internet, or they should be moved behind a firewall or a private network. The document also outlined that organizations are failing to stop and detect phishing attacks. Now, not only are phishing attacks occurring over email these days, but they are also occurring over private email. Hackers and phishers are identifying users who work at organizations, going after their personal email. Often those personal emails are not protected by your corporate email phishing and security system. And increasingly, we're seeing phishers move to non-email attack vectors, such as Slack, such as Signal, such as LinkedIn messaging, such as Apple messaging, such as Google messaging. All of these things, the social media platforms try to police, but users need to realize that anything that they connect with could actually be somebody spoofing to be somebody that they know. And lastly, the document outlined that most organizations who have been compromised with some sort of malware or ransomware could have had a layer of really good endpoint detection and response tools. Now, a lot of organizations are still using traditional antivirus solutions, and they need to upgrade to a solution that allows them to not only detect advanced, sophisticated malware, but also allows them to monitor their networks for precursors of attacks, such as what the hackers do before they deploy ransomware and as they try to get a foothold on your network. Now, if you want to find the full document, search CISA weak controls, and you'll see the document that's out there. I encourage everybody to read it and try to figure out where they are falling short and what they can do to make up the difference. If you enjoyed this video, please check our other videos out at gula.tech and here on this YouTube channel. I hope everybody stays safe in cyberspace.